Perhaps this time I've bitten off far more than I can chew. Attempting to rank the legendary soundtrack to an equally legendary game was a daunting task, but also a great excuse to revisit one of my favourite games of all time. I will be ranking all of the zone tracks of Sonic Mania. This does not include menu music or boss tracks, with two exceptions. Keep in mind that I am not a music expert, and this is simply my opinion. I actively encourage you to share your own thoughts in the comments below. With all that being said, let's begin. It feels almost painfully obvious that Angel Island was never intended to be a full track in this game. And when it came to doing just that for a mind-bogglingly short stage, the track feels very underbaked and lacking, particularly in comparison to anything else on the soundtrack. It is the only track that I would deem as disappointing across the soundtrack's entirety. It is crazy to me that even second last place is still an amazing track. Oil Ocean Act 1, through some amazing Middle Eastern influence, paints a vivid image of scorching heat and a suffocation that ignites an energetic desperation to put a stop to Robotnik's oil farming schemes. Now, whilst I love the uniqueness of this track style, I do find it to be too repetitive, and there isn't a big standout section of the track that does anything particularly special. Now, Titanic Monarch definitely has its hardcore fans, and I am certainly not one of them. I deeply appreciate the theming of this track, the true extent of your enemy's power actually sinking in but still charging forward anyway, for backing down is not an option. The gothic influences, particularly the church bells, are a fantastic touch, and the track itself is a great listen. I just don't think it has enough special moments that get stuck in your head or that stand out, and I admittedly struggle to remember how this track goes without sitting down and listening to it. Titanic Monarch Act 2 suffers from more or less the same problems, but I really love the opening for this track. This sort of infiltration that falls apart into a game of cat and mouse before the track reaches its climax. There's a lot to love here, and again, I completely understand why Titanic Monarch has its fans, but I simply much prefer what else this entrancing soundtrack has to offer. I believe Oil Ocean Act 2 somewhat rectifies the issues I have with Act 1 by better using its Middle Eastern influence to have some great standout moments without sacrificing the same great atmosphere being built. It is near impossible to say that any of the tracks within this ranking are objectively bad. More so than any other ranking I've done, this one really does come down to preference, and I just think the other tracks do more and have greater moments that I personally love. I'll admit, for the longest time I actually looked down upon Lava Reef for its odd thematic decisions. The track simply does not sound like a journey through a lava-infested cave system, but despite this, the track does so much to achieve the goal of simply sounding incredible. Now, I am a sucker for world building and atmosphere, as we will come to see, and I still believe this track slips up when it comes to that. But I have learned to overlook these slight discrepancies and instead just appreciate how kick-ass the track actually sounds. When researching the general consensus of the Sonic Mania soundtrack, I was surprised but also a little relieved to see mixed feelings about the final boss stage. Some argue it's the best track in the game, with no room for negotiation, while others actually view it as a bad track, and one of the soundtrack's weakest, if not the weakest. Now for me, the track sounds a little too busy at times, and when playing the actual game, it turns into noise more often than not. However, it ranks here purely for how incredible that guitar solo is. It completely saves the track for me. Mirage Saloon Act 1 Sonic and Tails mix does a lot right here in painting this amazing picture of a high-stakes dogfight above a scorching desert littered with wanted criminals. However, this track suffers from a unique problem. Mirage Saloon, as we will discuss, has two other truly masterful tracks, and comparatively, while I can appreciate how this one stands out, it is just nowhere near as good as the rest of what Mirage Saloon has to offer. Now, whilst Versus Metal Sonic is not an actual zone within the game, I'm allowing this one given how much of Stardust Speedway Act 2 is dedicated to this boss fight and subsequently to this music track. The track infuses the stage with a high-octane energy and some great character motifs without leaning too heavily into them. However, much like how Mania's Chemical Plant wipes the floor with Generations' rendition, I believe Generations' Metal Sonic fight theme is far superior to this one. Lava Reef Act 2 is such an enchanting track with some beautiful guitars. It's the musical equivalent of Stop and Smell the Flowers, but instead of flowers it's molten hot lava. This track feels like a moment to breathe for our heroes, while also imposing the weight of the rising stakes onto their shoulders. The track is admittedly a tad repetitive, which holds it back, but thematically speaking, I adore this one, and I believe it comes at the perfect moment within the game. I stated back in my ranking of Generations music that despite my adoration for Green Hill, its oversaturation across the franchise has made it difficult to resonate with the zone in the same way that I did as a kid. Perhaps it was the immense excitement I felt for Mania back in 2017, perhaps it was just the mastery of T. Lopes, or perhaps it's the gorgeous sprite work of the game. But Sonic Mania somehow manages to bring back the magic of Green Hill Zone in a way that no other reiteration of the zone comes even close to achieving. Now, the music plays it safe, with an emphasis on jazzing up the iconic track, and I don't know, listening to it always takes me back to my childhood, and while Sonic leans on nostalgia far too much, there is something particularly special about this instance of it. Chemical Plant Act 1, much like Green Hill Act 1, plays it safe, allowing the zone's second act to hit even harder by relying on the infectious melody of the original while jazzing it up slightly. Much like Green Hill, it doesn't do too much in the way of originality, and the rest of the soundtrack takes the lead as a result. But, man, Chemical Plant always gets trapped in my head. I think the idea of turning the Act 1 and Act 2 music variations into a rap battle between Sonic and Robotnik is truly genius. Act 1 is Sonic's verse, and while the Blue Blur tries his best to throw some shade in a truly hard-hitting track, This is quite possibly the only time Robotnik utterly and devastatingly wipes the floor with a speedster who, despite his best efforts, simply can't keep up. Stardust Speedway Act 2 paints this image of Sonic having far too much fun, saving the world against brutally evil adversaries. There's a real confidence depicted throughout the track, with some great uses of the piano here, and some great backing vocals that bring some infectious sass to the track. Hydrocity, or Hydrocity, depending on how you pronounce it, immediately hooks you into its incredible melody and simply refuses to let you go, despite how frustratingly short its loop feels, making the track become a little repetitive, and certainly making my neck sore from all the bobbing it does while playing. Stardust Speedway Act 1 does a great job of slowing things down, while reminiscing to the past variations of Sonic CD tracks. Thematically, after just being transported away again by the Phantom Ruby, the track and its accompanying visuals feel like this much needed reminder of what is at stake and what is being fought for. And of course, I love the storytelling elements of these tracks, so while the song doesn't have any standout moments, its slower melody really allows it to stand out while still being groovy. Green Hill Act 2 feels like the perfect combination of Green Hill and Palm Tree Panic. It breathes so much new life into the familiar, and it turns Green Hill into a true paradise, with the accordion section being my personal favourite. It blows my mind with how high the bar has been set, and how many tracks are still left in this list. Let that be a true testament to how much I adore this soundtrack. Press Garden Act 1 harnesses the conflict at the core of Sonic in such a fascinating way. Act 2 has us break free from the tabloid factory and allow the surrounding forest to prevail. This track has some similarities with Act 2, but drowns it out with mechanic sounds of saws. It's at the track's climax that the track sounds the most like Act 2, and it really paints this picture of the forest savior arriving on the scene, which is of course our lovable hedgehog. Flying Battery Act 1 doesn't pull any punches, and immediately slingshots you into a jazzy entourage of headbanging exhilaration. And while the track has a frustratingly short loop, just like Hydrocity Act 1, it achieves so much within this loop and manages to stay afloat above the lure of being overly repetitive. Chemical Plant Act 2 feels like the point in the game where T-Lopes truly demonstrates that he isn't holding back with this soundtrack. I utterly adore the intro to this song. It truly feels like a factory on the brink of collapse. The track is injected with so much new flair and attitude that it somehow manages to enhance one of my favorite tracks across the entire franchise. Putting Act 2 above Act 1 by a fairly considerable margin may be a bold move by me, but there is something about how perfectly this track manages to capture the image of this underground flooded haven. I wish I had a better grasp on music terminology so I could better express why I cherish this track, particularly the final segment before the loop, but I'll try my best with what I do know. It's good. Very good, dare I say. Studiopolis turned a lot of skeptical heads for very good reason. It brings some much needed personality to a franchise becoming far too comfortable with running through the same loops. The TV studio theme is so incredible, and Act 2's music is bursting with so much energy and atmospheric building, and yet it still somehow pales in comparison to Act 1. But we'll get to that soon. Undoubtedly the most enchanting track in the game, and by far the most visually stunning zone in the game. Press Garden Act 2 acts as a taste of the reward that Sonic fights so tirelessly for, the preservation of nature. The track feels like speeding through delicate snowfall and blossom leaves, and it's truly such a magical piece of music. I think some will definitely find it odd that Flying Battery Act 2 has ranked so highly, but for me, it illustrates this towering contraption in the sky, guided only by the flashes of lightning as our heroes race to bring the hunk of metal down once more. There's a real tension to the track while still maintaining the unbelievably catchy beats of Act 1. For me, Mirage Saloon Act 1 Knuckle Mix feels like such a huge risk when compared to the general direction of this soundtrack. But it more than paid off for me. I remember back in 2017, sitting on the music select screen, letting this one play on repeat. It doesn't help either that harmonicas are my weakness. I love everything about this song, making it even crazier to me that it's not even top 3. I remember seeing footage of Mirage Saloon prior to the game's release, and the actual gameplay drifted away from my mind, and instead my brain became far too preoccupied with just how good the music is. I wish this zone was longer, somewhat because I want to play the zone more, but mostly so that the song has more time in the spotlight. Without a doubt the most iconic track from the game, Studiopolis Act 1 was the proof that fans needed that this game was in safe hands, and T-Lopes goes all out with this one. I adore the energy of this track, and particularly the heavenly piano section. I don't want to meet the person who is able to resist grooving to this track. The very thought actually scares me. And at last, we reach our winner. Metallic Madness Act 2. Robotnik's turn in the rap battle. This track has everything. The atmosphere is painted perfectly. The vocals infuse the song with a playfulness without becoming too silly. And oh my gosh, that sax solo knocks me on my ass every single time. I truly cannot vocalize just how much I love that sax solo. And there we are. Ranking this soundtrack truly was an immense challenge, and if anything, I'm just grateful for the chance to revisit this game and this soundtrack. And as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everyone, and until next time, have a bloody good one.